Data Systems.
Hey guys, Casey here from Freefall Data Systems, and in this video I'll give you a thorough overview of our audio-visual altimeter, ColorAlti 3. Let's first go ahead and take a look at the device itself. Now, the case is made of hard-coat anodized aluminum. You can see there's a speaker here that should generally face your ear, and then you can see that there is a 2.5 millimeter light port and a USB-C port for charging, as well as for firmware updates and sharing settings, as we'll see. You've got a settings button at the top and a Bluetooth button on the bottom. If I hold down the top button, it'll tell me what preset is currently on. 1 beep means preset 1. If I hold it down again, I can change it to 2. And then if I keep holding it down, I can cycle through all of them. And back to 1. If you've got a light attached, you'll notice that they are color-coded as well. We'll get back to this Bluetooth button a little bit later, but I'll mention here you can check the battery status by holding down both buttons at once. So that was 8 beeps, that corresponds to 80%. Each beep represents 10%, so if I hear 3 beeps, it would be 30% battery life. You might notice that the light lights up green here as well. It goes from green at 100% to red at 10%. There's also an internal reset button that you can't really see here that is next to the settings button that can be accessed with a paperclip. This button is also used for firmware updates and sharing settings as well. ColorAlti 3 is a low-power rechargeable device and can get up to 4 months of battery life on a full charge. The device is always on, so you don't need to worry about whether it's on when you go to the DZ. If you travel to a different elevation, it'll adjust automatically. How long the battery lasts will depend on a host of different factors, including the settings used, frequency of use, as well as environmental factors like heat, cold, or humidity. To charge it, simply plug it in and wait till the red light goes off. This generally takes about 3 to 4 hours. By the way, there's an automatic low battery warning that you'll hear or see at 1,000 feet if the battery gets down to 10%. At the time of making this video, there are currently 3 different lights that we offer with ColorAlti 3, which can of course be used without lights as an audible altimeter and data logger since it has all the capabilities of our ColorAlti 3 as well. Let's take a look at the different light options currently available. We'll start with FlexiLight 3. The idea behind this light is that you can bend the gooseneck into shape and it'll retain its form. If you look carefully, you'll see it has 4 LEDs under this lens. This is the only option currently available for open-face helmets. Some jumpers, including a number of prominent speed skydivers, use flexi lights in closed-face helmets as well. This also has the advantage that the light remains in place when the visor is lifted under canopy. The method of mounting will entirely depend on the type of helmet and personal preference, with some preferring the light coming from above and others preferring the light protruding from the side. Depending on the helmet design, it can sometimes be useful to use some sort of Velcro or tape as a reinforcement to help keep the light in place. This is perhaps the main advantage of the next 2 lights we'll discuss. Once fixed, they're always in the same place. Sticky Light 3 with its 10 LEDs is the most popular choice when it comes to lights for ColorAlti 3. These are disposable flexible circuit boards that adhere directly to the visor. They aren't much wider than the rim of sunglasses, so they take up very little space in your peripheral vision. They connect via a low-profile cable that is kept in place by 2 clips facing in opposing directions. It's important to set these up correctly the first time, as they can't be moved and can only be removed after they had been adhered to the visor. Cinch the helmet down as you normally would and wear any eyewear you might wear on jumps, as it may be in the way of the light if you don't wear it when placing the light. It can be useful to have someone else help place the included pattern with a piece of Scotch tape on the outside of the visor. Make sure that the visor is either brand new or that you have very thoroughly cleaned the surface of the inside of the visor with Dawn soap. You want the surface to be extremely dry. A good installation is normally good for many hundreds of jumps. Remove the backing and place the light directly over the pattern on the inside of the visor. I'll often use a credit card to kind of get between the LEDs and other components on the circuit board. One challenge is that we have curved surface on the visor and flat components on the circuit board, so we can just kind of work around as such. As mentioned, the cable is routed through these 2 clips, and some slack should be left here for when the visor is opened. Let's move now to the last light currently offered, Rigid Light 3. This light is definitely the most challenging to install, but has the advantage of being similar to Sticky Light 3 in most regards, but it's actually more compact and can be moved from visor to visor as well. The main disadvantage is that you have to drill into your visor, and for this reason it's critical that the task is carried out with success. Since this is a bit more of an involved operation, we've actually produced a separate video showing the installation of rigid light, which I've linked in the description of this video. Shooting Star, one of the greatest dealers of skydiving gear out there, has also produced a video installing rigid light. In that video, they use a Dremel instead of a drill. As you can see, each of these lights is unique in its characteristics. It has its advantages and disadvantages. It all comes down to application and personal preference, and I'm always glad to discuss individual cases with jumpers if you write or call us. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at how you set this device. The FDS-Alti's app can be downloaded on Google Play or in the App Store. Now, as mentioned before, the actual preset you want to use has to be selected on the device itself. You need to make sure you enable Bluetooth on your mobile device and that you're in close proximity to the altimeter. These altimeters don't have a long Bluetooth range because the cases are made of metal. After reading the warning and agreeing to the limits of liability agreement, go ahead and put the device into Bluetooth mode by holding down the bottom button. This should make the blue light flash. This means that it's in Bluetooth mode, but not yet connected. On Android, the type of device is automatically recognized, whereas in iOS, currently you have to select the type of device and press connect and sync. You should see your device displayed as such. The last 5 digits listed here are the serial number of the unit. Click on the device and you should see the blue light go solid, indicating that the altimeter is connected to your mobile device. Again, these last 5 digits of the serial number of your unit, if you watch the FDS logbook instructional video linked in the description of this video, you'll see that that serial number can also be used as a discount code for 1 year free use of FDS logbook. Let's go ahead and take a look at info at the bottom first. You can see at the top we got the serial number listed again. We have the battery percentage, the number of jumps currently in the flash memory, which in this case is 3, and then the firmware number that is currently on the unit. Now let's go ahead and look above that at data syncing. You can see that I got various drop zones, aircraft, and equipment that I use that I've input beforehand in FDS logbook. There's an entirely separate instructional video on FDS logbook that you should take a look at. You can change all this stuff here or within FDS logbook. And then if I want to take jumps off the unit, I click on data syncing there at the bottom, and we can see I've got 3 files currently on the altimeter. I'm going to take those off of the altimeter by pressing download files from altimeter. Those are no longer on the altimeter now. They are on the mobile device, and then when I press upload all files, it will go ahead and upload these files to my logbook. That requires a Wi-Fi connection in order to work. There's a lot of exciting stuff you can do with FDS logbook, so definitely take a look at that video, which I've linked in the description. Let's go ahead and take a look at settings now. If you click on the top on main, these are the settings that apply to all the presets on the unit. So I can, for example, change the number of LEDs. In this case, it's actually correct. I have 4 LEDs on this light, and I can change the center frequency of the alarm below that. Below that, I can disable logging if I want. I could also put it into metric mode if that's what I use. Then you could put the unit into travel mode if you want. Don't accidentally turn this on because it disables the altimeter, although the buttons will still work. After this, for logging, you can set your next jump number. We've now made it easy to copy one preset to the other if you just want to slightly tweak a preset. In that case, type in the preset number you want to copy, and then the preset that you want to write over. Click the button, and that's it. Now, as we mentioned, there are 5 presets in ColorAlti 3. By default, all presets have the same settings, so let's go ahead and look at preset 1 and we'll see what those are. Let's click on General at the very top. You can see that you can set a landing zone offset at the top. If, for example, you had a landing zone lower than your takeoff altitude, you could type in negative 200 feet, use a negative number if it's below, and it'll tell you what you've typed in. You've indicated that your landing area is 200 feet below your takeoff altitude. If your landing zone is above your takeoff altitude, let's say maybe like 140 feet or something like that, type in 140, positive number, and it'll say you've indicated your landing area is 150 feet above your takeoff altitude. Let's just make sure you're absolutely clear on the result of what you've typed in. The next option is useful for wingsuiters or those using tracking suits. This default value of 80 miles per hour is actually what Freefall Data Systems uses as a threshold to indicate that a jumper is in freefall and not under canopy. But those who wingsuit are often falling slower than this. In fact, it's now well known that wingsuits can even go up. So if you're a wingsuiter with a small suit, you might type in something like 40 miles per hour here. If you're doing something like XRW and you have a larger suit, you might even type in something as low as 20 miles per hour. Below this, you can disable freefall alerts and alarms below a certain altitude. This could be useful for swoopers, for example, who want to be sure to get the audio and light for canopy below a certain altitude, even if they're above the freefall threshold displayed above, because that's the speed value that altimeter will use to automatically switch between freefall and canopy settings. So if a swooper were to input 1,500 feet here, then they could be sure that they'd only get canopy, alarms, and alerts below 1,500 feet. Below that, of course, you can adjust the LED brightness and the volume for each individual phase of the skydive. Now let's take a look at where you can set audible alarms under sound. Look at the bottom of the screen and you can see the 3 phases of a skydive: ascent, freefall, and canopy. For ascent, you can see we have an alarm at 1,500 feet. If I tap it, I can preview it. And we have one at 12,000 feet as well, conceived as a gear check. If I want to input an alarm, I can write over this, for example. Let's write over the one at 12,000 feet. And if I want to delete an alarm, swipe left on iOS or hold down on Android. Alarms sound for 4 seconds on ascent, and in freefall, you can see that there's actually an altitude range in which they sound. So you can see in freefall, we have as a default from 6,000 down to 5,500 feet, high long beeps. Then from 4,500 feet down to 4,000 feet, we've got high short beeps. From 3,000 down to 2,500, we got a fast siren. Because we're inputting an altitude range, the length of the alarm will depend on our freefall speed. At 120 miles per hour, these particular ones will last about 3 seconds. Under canopy, you can see we can also input an altitude range in which we'd like to hear an alarm. We have from 1,000 down to 950 feet, low short beeps, followed by low medium beeps at 600 feet, and a low flat line at 300 feet. You can see in this case, these sound for 50 feet. All right, let's take a look at what makes ColorAlti shine, so to speak. Under light, you'll see the 3 phases of the skydive again at the bottom. For the alerts, you'll notice that the LEDs are always the same color. They could be doing a lot of different things, but they're always the same color. I can choose a color I want to start with and a color I would like to blend to, but as you can see, all the LEDs are the same color. So with effects, it's a little bit different. They're either white in color, for example, white flash, or you can, for example, campfire looks like that, America looks like this. These are a little bit more attention getting. In a similar fashion, on ascent, each of the alerts or effects lasts 4 seconds. In freefall, again, we have altitude ranges in which we will see these alerts. For example, in freefall, we have from 13,000 down to 6,000 feet, stay lit. We could, for example, change this. Let's go ahead and overwrite it from 13,000 down to 6,000 feet. We'll go ahead and keep that blend from blue to red. Remember, starting color to the color I want to blend to. And let's go ahead and use one of the altitude dependent alerts, of which there are 4. So now it'll kind of count up from 13,000 down to 6,000 feet. It's kind of cooler on the lights that have 10 LEDs. But these 4, count up, count down, fade in, fade out, are altitude dependent. So if we want to insert that, there we go. You can see it replaced it. Again, you can preview here. You can see the default is basically blending from blue to red from 13,000 to 6,000 feet, after which we have America from 6,000 to 3,000, at which point 3,000 feet, it flashes red. Under canopy, pretty much in sync with the audible, you can see we have from 1,000 to 600 feet, stay lit in blue, and then green from 600 to 300, and then from 300 to 50 feet, stay lit in red. You can see all the alerts and effects on all the lights currently available for ColorAlti 3 on our website at freefalldatasystems.com/ColorAlti_3_alerts_and_effects. These default settings have a lot of thought put into them, but I recommend to everybody to think through their settings carefully and make the device their own through their own custom settings. All right, to wrap things up, let's just take a quick look at how to update firmware on the altimeter. If you go to freefalldatasystems.com/ColorAlti_3_firmware, you can download the newest firmware file. Go ahead and download that file. Plug your altimeter into the computer, double-click the reset button. This has to be a fast double tap, and the drive should appear on your computer as Featherboot. If it doesn't, it could be that your cable is only intended for charging, or that your computer will not allow the connection for security reasons. In this case, try with different hardware. After the drive appears, simply drag the new firmware file onto the altimeter. You should hear the altimeter emit a startup sound. You can always check the firmware on the app as we saw earlier under Info. In some cases, you may want to share your settings with another jumper. To do this, plug your altimeter in as before and double tap the reset button quickly. Just as before, the drive should appear on your computer. If you look at this file on the altimeter, current.uf2, this is the file you need. Save it to your computer. Now plug the other altimeter in and double tap the reset button on that one. Drag that current.uf2 file onto the new altimeter. When it asks you if you want to replace the file, click yes. That's it, you should hear the startup sound again. If you ever have any issues with ColorAlti 3, you can always send us a message describing the problem as best you can, or give us a call and we can try to figure it out. If the altimeter doesn't react to button presses, try charging it up. Another thing you can do is give the reset button a single tap. Don't double tap it or it'll be put into the bootloader mode used for firmware updates. There's also a chance that the altimeter was inadvertently put into travel mode. Check that under main. And that concludes this instructional video on ColorAlti 3. If you have any more specific questions on the altimeter, go ahead and shoot us an email or give us a call. Take care and stay safe up there.
Freefall Data Systems.